Welcome to the Pewtercast. I'm Brent Allen, your host. Today is December the 13th, 2016, and this is episode 24, Defrocking the Saints. Merry Christmas, Bucs fans. Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Holidays, whatever it is that you celebrate. I just hope you're still celebrating this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team being 5 in a row, and specifically celebrating this past win over the Saints, 16-11. Now, guys, listen, 5 in a row is no small feat for any NFL team. But to see our beloved Buccaneers do it, woo, I am excited. Oh, man, and I got to tell you, this has been a good week. You know, Bucs win, it usually turns out to be a pretty good week for me. Got all my Christmas shopping done. We got the Elf on the Shelf out, and he's up to no good. I'm watching my fill of Christmas movies, and I got to tell you, my favorite part so far of the season, Christmas lights. I love just getting to kind of sit back on the couch, bask in the warm, soft glow of the Christmas lights coming from the tree while screaming, "Go Bucs!" and waking up the whole damn house because I'm rewatching the game at 1 o'clock in the morning getting ready for this show. Yeah, that was me. So, well, hey, listen, guys, this is the part of the show here in the intro where normally we would read like some iTunes reviews, but maybe an email, maybe we do a voicemail, something like that, but I don't have any right now. We had a fantastic, a really, really great instant cast show this past Sunday night. Those go live every Sunday night at 10 o'clock at mixler.com/thepewtercast. Please feel free to jump in. This past week's show, for the second week in a row, has become the most and the fastest downloaded episode in all of Pewtercast history. So thank you for all the fans out there. Thank you to everybody who is jumping on board, who is finding the Pewtercast, who is joining us, who's downloading the show, who's telling your friends about it. And hey, one way you can help me, especially, you know, listen, when everybody wins, when the Bucs win, everybody starts doing well. And certainly the numbers that I've seen for this show have been reflecting the score on the Tampa Bay, you know, on their season record. As the season record gets better, so do our numbers. So listen, if you guys could all do me a favor, go over to iTunes, leave me a review, leave me a rating, and what that does is that helps other people who are kind of just jumping into listening to Buccaneers shows, to podcasts or whatever. It helps them find us a lot faster. It helps them find us a lot better. And I do want to say thanks to the 31 of you. That is a phenomenal number. The 31 of you who have already left reviews, I really appreciate that. But we could use some more. And who doesn't like having their review read on air? Because we'll do that right here. We'll read it. You get to be a part of the show. All right, guys. Well, with all that out of the way, why don't we go ahead and bring on this week's guest? This guy, he is a perennial attender to most Bucs podcasts and shows that are broadcast live. He's always in the chat room. His knowledge and ability to drop info on a dime is super, super impressive, and that's one of the main reasons I wanted him on my show. He is a contributor at Real Bucs Talk. Please welcome to the show, Ren Daxt. Ren, thanks for coming on the show today, man.
No problem, Brent. Thanks a lot. It's kind of a bucket list thing for me to be on a podcast. I know you have a big audience. I'm really excited. And I have a big tiara to fill, so to speak. Last week was great. Bucs Princess, she hit it out of the park.
Yeah, she did. She did fantastic. And don't tell any of my other previous show guests, but I think she might be my favorite one so far. So you've got, as you say, a big tiara to fill. In fact, I wouldn't mind seeing a picture of you in a tiara. I think that'd make everybody laugh.
Yeah, I'll get right on that for you.
Probably not. All right, so you are a contributor to Real Bucs Talk. Talk to us. What is that?
Real Bucs Talk. You can find us at Twitter at Real Bucs Talk. It's a blog spot. You want to find it on the net. It's at realbucstalk.blogspot.com. Basically, there's these two guys. Michael Pless, who's really kind of like the heart of the team. He always bangs out articles. He's already done 3 this week. Then there's James Ramirez. That kid just eats film. If you ever seen us on Twitter, usually he puts out 10, 15, sometimes 20. He knew I was coming on the show tonight, so I think he just about broke down every single play. He does it in Vine. Right. Throws it out there on Twitter for everybody to see. I always like to do. I kind of do the offbeat pieces. I guess is the best way to put it. I did a piece on concussion protocol, like what exactly does that mean? You know, we hear that Humphreys is in concussion protocol and Hampill's in concussion protocol, and you cast Dirk Cutter and he's just, you know, whatever that is, that's not his thing. So I went and did some research.
Right.
I went and found out exactly what they have to do about how players have to take baseline readings in preseason. I have my favorite one I do every week is the game within the game. Mm-hmm. Basically, it's like the key to the games, but we do it a little different because you go on a lot of sites and you see them through the week on Twitter and you click on it and it's the same thing. Well, how do you beat the Saints? Well, you know, you stop Drew Brees, you run the ball, you don't turn the ball over, get interceptions. Well, yeah, that's what you do. But we break it down further. This week it was big for Drew Brees not to climb in the pocket. We did great on that with the pass rush up the middle. My biggest one was Drew Brees is so fast in his checkdowns. He throws it out to the flats, and they get a lot of their extra yardage off that. And I wrote that it's going to be a huge key for linebackers to close that gap, that yardage space, and take care of that for them. We also are big on the draft. I know I'm kind of rambling on here, but it's a site that just two guys started that just wanted to get information out because they felt like there wasn't a lot out there. They felt that a lot of the information was negative. They just love Bucs football. It's been up less than a year, and there's already 500 posts. So we're serious about it, and we're getting a lot of good feedback. We're starting to gain some traction, and honestly, I really couldn't be happier.
Yeah, you know, a couple weeks ago, I mentioned a guy, Stephen Shea, who does a lot of game film review.
He's excellent.
He's excellent, and honestly, you guys are too. You know, I'm kind of still learning how to break down game film. I mean, when I played ball, you know, it was back in the 90s. We played high school ball. I was on the line. There wasn't much game film to review. It's just the guy. It's the guy who's 2 feet in front of me. That's the guy I'm going to hit. You know, I didn't have to know much more than that. You know, slant this way, go out that way. Maybe pull out and run down the field a little bit if that was the play that was called. But other than that, I didn't have to know much for high school football. You know, so it's been fun, really, this last year since getting in here, kind of reviewing more of the game and seeing it. And you guys, along with Stephen Shea, you guys always put out really great content, breaking stuff down. You know, helping people be really just more informed fans, which is great.
I appreciate that. Yeah, James, like I said, he just eats films. He works very hard. And something I'd like to point out about those Vine clips is we kind of get to talk about them twice. Because James will put them out, and then he'll see what he sees in the tweet, and then I quote the tweet, and I can add like another 140 characters to it as well. Right. Sometimes he breaks it down so great, and you know that I don't have anything to say. But instead of just being held to those 140 characters, we can like really get in there, and I think it's a really great tool, like you said, for people to learn, start breaking down film. We do a lot of big man stuff, and yeah, he really enjoys it. Yeah, no,
it's great. So Bucs fans, Pewtercast fans, make sure you go over there, follow. It's at Real Bucs Talk on Twitter. And if you're in any of the Facebook groups, I know Michael Pless, he posts the articles not infrequently. So, well, guys, why don't we get into the show? Today, guys, we're going to be reviewing the Bucs Saints game. Just to be fair, this is the first Bucs Saints game of the 2016 season. We've got another one coming up in like a week and a half at this point, I guess. And then we're going to be taking a look at our top 3 players that are coming off the bench. That should be a very fun discussion. And then we're going to wrap up the show with a segment that we did a few weeks ago that became pretty popular called What Are the Chances? It's all coming your way right here on the Pewtercast, fans, so stay tuned.
Kalikimaka is the thing to say on a bright Hawaiian Christmas day. That's the island greeting that we send to you from the land where palm trees sway. Here we know that Christmas will be green and bright, the sun will shine by day and all the stars at night. Melikalikimaka is a wise way to say Merry Christmas to you.
You're listening to the Pewtercast. This is episode 24, Defrocking the Saints. And unless you've been living under a rock, you are aware by now that the Bucs have extended their winning streak to 5 wins in a row now. So far, knock on wood, we have been perfect since the season midpoint. And when I say perfect, I mean perfect in our record, not always perfect on the field. And Ren, I'm sure we're going to get into that day today. Now, the Bucs won 16-11. We mentioned that a little bit earlier, which was a much lower scoring game than I think anyone would have ever imagined. So, Ren, let's get into the game. Before we dive into specific groups, do you have any kind of overall thoughts of the game that you want to share?
Yeah, I have 3 things that I wanted to talk about real quickly. I mean, obviously, you got to talk about the elephant in the room. You know, defense. Overall thoughts, like the Bucs defense has pretty much carried us through, especially these last 2 games. Then my second point, I always wanted to, before we get to it, is our special teams. They're special.
And I don't think you're meaning short bus special, are you?
No, not short bus special. Well, just that one time.
Yeah.
Well, I guess 2 plays in a row. They were very short bus special. But yeah, they were good. And then of course, I know you'll like this one. Hashtag I'm with 19.
There you go. Did you see? I think it was the guys over at the Buckaholics. Like they're creating some merchandise or things, whatever, and they took the hashtag and put it on like a glass, like a drinking glass. That just had a picture of Roberto or something.
It's a prayer candle.
Oh, that's what it was. It was a prayer candle.
Which makes it so much better.
Yeah. Which I was like, hey, look at that. Look at that getting around there. That's cool.
Yeah, I just said that was really cool then. They did a good job out there.
That's fun. They did. So here's the thing. As far as some overall thoughts for me, I had one big thought kind of coming out of the game, and I've heard a few people say it a little bit even this week. I actually said it on the Instant Cast show this past week. As a lot of people are talking about, this was it was an ugly win. And I went back and watched the game, and I started looking at it, and I've really come to say, I think we need to stop saying that. I don't think this was an ugly game. I really don't. People can disagree with me. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
Yeah, sorry about that. No, I'm with you 100%.
Yeah.
I was prepared to go on this whole rant. I know we're not the offense yet, so when you let me know, you let me go, because when the Saints kicked their field goal to get within 2 to make it 11-13, my Twitter line, I don't know about you, 90% of the people I follow and follow me on Twitter are Bucs fans. They're either beat writers, but most of us, they're just like me and you. And my feed during the game is so fast, I can't even read them all.
Right.
Just by scrolling down and reading them all. I mean, that's how many people tweet out. But when the Saints got within 2 and it started going, where's the offense? Where's the offense? Come on, we need offense. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, the Bucs have only had 2 possessions since the last time they scored. And one was a one-play safety. So I understood, because it was 19 minutes and 51 seconds of game clock, and they had 2 possessions.
Right.
So I understand when people are jumping on them, where's the offense? Where's the offense? But if you look at the tape, I'm with you. It wasn't a bad offensive showing. They moved the ball constantly.
Right. And here's what I'll say. While the offense didn't put up any huge numbers, here's the thing. There were no injuries. Jameis wasn't that dirty by the end of the game. I mean, he wasn't completely clean, but he wasn't covered in mud like he was at the end of the Broncos game.
Only 2 sacks.
Yeah. I mean, the penalties were not out of control, and I'm sure we'll get into talking about Donovan Smith and what happened with him. We did move the ball down the field. Here's what we just didn't do on offense. We didn't finish the drives like we needed to. And that I think has been the story over these last couple of weeks. But you know what? We did finish the drive. We did finish enough drives to give us enough points to be on the good side of the scoreboard when the clock ran out. And to talk about the defense, our defense was in Drew Brees' face all day long. And here's, I went back and I had to look it up because we mentioned it. We mentioned it in the Instant Cast show coming back. Was, the Saints are a high scoring team. They're a very high scoring team, and we held them to their lowest score of the season. And it was, it might have been an ugly game on the Saints' part because twice they gave up touchdowns that they should have had in the end zone. They had them in the bag, but whether it was a dropped pass or a penalty or something like that, like they gave up touchdowns that got called back. But, I went back and I looked it out, and through 13 games just this season alone, only 3 of the games have they scored less than 20 points. Twice they scored 13, and then with us they scored 11. 6 of those 13 games, they scored more than 30 points, and half of those they scored more than 40 points. So this is a high 10 games. That means 10 games they scored 20 or more points. And in 3 of those they scored more than 40. 3 of them they scored more than 30, and I guess that means 4 they've scored 20. So 20 or more. So the fact that we held them to 11, and you could make an argument that we held them to 9 because we gave them 2 points in that safety, right? You could make that argument, but let's just call it 11 because that's what the scoreboard says. It wasn't an ugly game. So I kind of want to put that term to bed and just say there were certainly places. Here's what I'll liken it to. This game may not have been a perfect 10. It may not have even been an 8 or a 9, but this was a solid 7. Like you're in the bar, you go, that's a 7. That's a 7. I can do that.
I give it a 7.5, and
with
that, like with that, and if you want to throw in the defense as like the whole game, you got to bump it up to an 8. I'm sorry, you do.
Yeah,
you have to bump it up to an 8. We had, like you said, they had their chances, we had ours.
Yeah.
Jameis missed Sims on the sidelines for a touchdown. He missed Evans across the middle on the same drive to get it within the 5. Last time they were driving, Doug Martin was free, but he had a free rusher, and it was on 3rd down. We were moving the ball,
right,
and it was just the execution that wasn't there. He missed Shepard. Shepard was wide open.
Yep.
He missed him late. The guy, I believe it was Miller, got his hand in, knocked it down.
Yep.
So I don't like saying it's an ugly win, and because we played the highest scoring, like you said, the highest scoring offense in the league. The team that had was converting 3rds down at the highest clip than any other team in the league.
Mm-hmm.
And the Bucs, the defense just shut them down, and the Bucs moved the ball on them. They just couldn't. They just couldn't turn those 3s into 7s.
Yeah, and at one point, I had to listen the first time to the game. I listened to Gene Deckerhoff's call, and he said at one point, I remember he said the Bucs have 10 points, the Saints have none. The Bucs have 10 first downs, the Saints have none. That was, and I don't remember at what point in the game. That was probably midway through the second quarter or so, somewhere around there. But it hit me so hard I actually stopped what I was doing and I wrote that down. Bucs have 10 points, Saints have none. Bucs have 10 first downs, Saints have none. In fact, the Saints' first down came because Levante David got a face mask penalty, and that's an automatic first down.
Yeah. They only ran 6 plays in the whole first quarter.
Yeah.
They had 2 3-and-outs. I mean, the defense was masterful.
Yeah.
And I've already said my piece in the offense about how there was just that funny little window with the safety, and then they scored a field goal, and then they got the safety, then they got the ball, and then it was halftime, then they got the ball. They got the ball first at a halftime. So it was like it was 19 minutes of game clock, not like your watch. It was 19 minutes ticked off it, and they only had 2 possessions, and like I said, one of them was that one play safety. So I'm not worried about the Bucs offense. I have 100% confidence in the way Dirk Cutter calls the plays. I think he has a knack for it. I think he sees things that other play callers don't. And I like his guts, and I think he goes for it.
Yeah, and I'll tell you the other thing about Dirk Cutter is he's humble enough, he's real enough to be able to go back after the game and look at how he called the game and be dissatisfied where he could have called it better, which makes him call it better the next game. He's continuing to become a better play caller, and I think he's already a pretty damn good one. And I think the big note that I have out of this, if I'm concerning the offense altogether, is they just, and the whole team. It's been this theme, I think, for me for these last 4 or 5 weeks going into the end of the season here is going to be finish. They just got to finish. They've got to finish, but they finished enough like I said, to be on the good side of the scoreboard when the clock ran out. All right, let's go down and let's break this down a little bit further. Let's look at the offense specifically. Do you have any thoughts as it relates to the offense, whether it's Jameis, the running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, offensive line? Go for it. What do you got?
Well, most of it I already told you.
Right.
I was all prepared to go on this rant, and I couldn't wait for the offense for us to get to offense before I just spilt it out there. Teams, wide receivers, Evans, they're taking away, they're rolling a safety, they're bracketing, they're clouding him. But Dirk Cutter will tell you, like, you try to bring up injuries, and basically he just tells you to shut up. He'll no, and he's right, because you can't think that way. But does it hinder their effectiveness? Yes, it does. It took Jameis Winston about 3 weeks to get comfortable with Cecil Shorts. He was throwing high, he was throwing behind him, and then as soon as you saw it, we're like, okay, there it is. He gets hurt. Right. It's the same thing. Same thing's going to happen with Josh Huff, But more than likely, we're going to get Adam Humphries back this week. I thought Doug Martin ran hard. I think Doug Martin's been running hard. I know there's a narrative out there about Doug Martin and he's not any good. We should put it in Jarquiz Rogers. But Doug Martin, the only reason I think that his numbers don't look as good, besides if you watch a tape, you understand that he's running hard and it's not his fault that he's only getting 3 yards of carry. It's because the first guy has to dodge is 3 yards in the backfield.
Right.
But after that, I lost my train.
That's all right. Hey, let me pick that up because, here's the thing. Doug Martin may get stuffed in the backfield, but then he turns around and he breaks off a bunch of 8 and 9 yard runs. And so when you look, he's getting 2.9 yards per carry. That's his average, which means some plays he does more, some plays he does less. And that's his average. But the plays he does more, I mean, he's getting pretty good numbers. We have yet to see a string of the explosive runs that he had from last season, but he's still getting there. If I had one complaint about Doug Martin, and I don't even know that I can blame him for it, and I think it was actually a film thing that you guys put out, was in terms of like that safety, that Doug Martin's not finding the right hole to go through. Like if I had to put it on him, because there's a lot we can talk about the offensive line not opening up holes for him this year. But sometimes there are holes, like in particularly on that safety play, he wound up running up between the center and I believe it was Pamphile, when there was a huge just gap right behind Donovan Smith that he could have run through and probably got down to about the 4 or 5, maybe even the 6 yard line before getting tackled. And jumped through. So I mean, and that's something that Doug Martin's just he's got to be able to see better. But I don't know what it's like from his particular vantage point.
I'm right there with you, and thanks for picking me up. And that was exactly the point I was trying to make. Was when he's losing 5 or 6 yards, but it makes the 8-9 yard runs look like 2 and 3 yard runs. Right. And that's what you're saying. Right. But yeah, I know that the commentators made something about it earlier in the game about, he missed this huge hole there. I've watched it. I don't really think he did. I don't think the linebacker was actually blocked on that play. I think Doug would have ran right into him. Mm-hmm. That's not here nor there. But on the safety, yeah, you're absolutely right. Donovan Smith kicked his guy out. That was an easy. He probably would have made it even out to the 5, like you said, 5, 6, 7 yard line on that. Mm-hmm. Misread, but I'm not going to knock a guy for making one bad read. I'm just not going to do it. It's unfortunate it was 2 points for the other team, but Doug Martin's real hidden gem, where he's really important to the offense is his blitz pickups. Yeah. Jameis Winston we would possibly lead the league in being sacked if it wasn't for he saves 2 a game. That's all I can say.
Yeah. And to that point, I mean, that's how the team works together. And those are the things that don't really show up on the stat line. And it's why I hate stats so much. I mean, stats tell us stuff, their numbers mean something, but at the same time, they can be manipulated or they cannot actually tell the whole story. So you just have to take them with a grain of salt. And that's a huge thing that when you do go back and see the tape, because when you're watching the game live, you're just watching the ball to see where it goes. But when you get to go back and watch the tape and you actually see what the other guys are doing, man, some of these tackles that little teeny tiny Doug Martin is making, or some of the blocks that little teeny tiny Doug Martin's making, I mean, my God, like he's, you know, and to go back to Jameis, one of the notes I had on him is defenses can't catch him. He doesn't get rattled. He spends so much time sitting in the backfield that defenses can't catch him. And part of that is because the offensive line is holding, because he gets Alan Cross back there, he gets Doug Martin, you know, whoever's back there with him. They're doing a pretty dang good job of holding people back for as long as they can, because he's, you know, Jameis is back there letting plays develop, and when people do try to get a hand on him, he's able to slip them in. You know, there was one play where one of the defender guys, I forget who it was for the Saints, had a hand on Jameis, and Jameis slapped it away and ran up and wound up giving like a little toss down, I think to Mike Evans, you know, and wound up getting a first down out of the whole deal. So, you know, but all of that comes back to what Doug Martin is doing in the backfield, to what the rest of the guys are doing. And hey, as we're talking about people in the backfield, welcome back Charles Sims, you right?
Oh, yeah, I have, yeah, definitely. You know, when Martin went out and he brought Sims in, and, you know, he's obviously, everyone found out real quick he can't run between the tackles, but what he brings to the offense, and get him in space and get him on the edge, you know, they said it during the game, and you kind of forgot all about it, that Sims got 1,000 yards from scrimmage last year.
Right. He
ran for over 500 yards from scrimmage last year. Having Sims back for these last 4 games is going to be huge. It's going to be money.
Yeah, and here's the thing about Chuck Sims. You know, honestly, when he went down, I kind of, admittedly, I had a little bit of a bad taste for him in my mouth. But I think that's because he wasn't playing his role. He was playing the feature back role. He was playing Doug Martin's role. Charles Sims is great when he's playing his role. That, you know, that third down back, that back that kind of kicks out down the line a little bit, and he does great. And as you just mentioned, last year he had 1,000 yards from scrimmage. Like I loved seeing him back in the game playing his role that is so complementary to the other guys that we have. We don't need another Doug Martin. We have him and Peyton and Jacquizz. We need Charles Sims to be Charles Sims.
I totally agree. And one more thing to think about. We have had Doug Martin, Charles Sims on the field for an entire game 2 times. The Atlanta game, week 1, and then last Sunday.
Wow.
So, like I said, I'm really excited to see these guys be, you know, put together back the way they were. And they're both going to be fresh, especially Charles Sims. And I think the offense is going to have another weapon and really going to open up and make it easier for them to move the ball down the field. I really do.
All right, so let's move over and let's talk about somebody else in the offense. And I just want to get your take on this because I'm starting to have some questions come up in my mind about trying to figure out what exactly is going on with him. The last couple of games, Mike Evans has pretty much seemingly been erased from the game outside of less than 5 targets or less than five times that he's getting the ball. Which
Are you upset
is
about your fantasy point?
I am a little bit, but I can't be too bad because I'm in the playoffs in both of my leagues, and
there you go.
I'm still playing Mike Evans because you got to ride the horse, but yeah, you can't sit him. But more than that, you know, listen, here's the thing: when Mike Evans, even if he doesn't get a lot of targets, he gets the big targets. You know, he gets the ones that come up big, and certainly we know that without another. To use a fantasy word, wide receiver 1 role for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, he's going to get double teamed. People are game planning for Mike Evans, and that's going to take him out, but it's going to open up other people. All right, we get that idea. But I'm starting to wonder, and I'd love your thoughts on this. Is it possible that Jameis is just checking out of him too early? Like, is he, you know, as he's spreading the ball around, is he just checking out of Mike before Mike is actually, you know, ready, where there could be more for Mike there? What do you think about that?
I think that if Jameis wanted to feed the ball to Mike, that Jameis could throw Mike open. I think just what you said and what I brought up earlier is that defensive teams are coming in and they're saying, we're going to take away Mike Evans, beat us. Find another way to beat us. And Jameis, he just reminds me of like LeBron James in basketball. Like, he's going to always make the right play. He loves football. He loves to watch film. He loves to make reads. And I feel that he's making the right read because Mike he's not open. Do I think he could throw it to Mike and get him open? Yes, I do. Because if you remember on Sunday, when we had the ball, it was like the 5 minutes, and we're trying to run the clock down before that last punt that pinned him deep. We got 1 first down, and it was like 3rd and 3, and who'd they go to? They went to Mike Evans on the slant, and they got the first down.
Yeah. So
to sum it up, yes and no. I think he is, but I think it's the right play at the time.
Fair enough. All right. Well, I think we can just agree our tight ends, Cameron Brate's amazing. He's so reliable. He's a big target. Brandon Myers had some pretty good blocks tonight. We really miss Luke Stalker. I think we can probably just agree on that. Let's get to the big conversation that I personally would like to have, because we bantered about it a little bit on Twitter earlier today. The offensive line. Thoughts on the offensive line? I'll let you go first.
I like our offensive line. Now, apparently, like when we went to San Diego, I mean, they had the 6th ranked run defense. Apparently, they were doing some new stuff, some new stunts that the team hadn't seen before, and that was kind of like the theme of the week, was why they couldn't run the ball. Yeah, there are some weaknesses there, but there's nobody else. I mean, we gave a big contract to Dot. He wasn't in there. Chairless did not have a good game. Marpet, you really can't get any better in the league. Joe Hawley, bless his soul. You love his beard. He's a great guy. He's funny. If I get into a bar fight, the first guy I want behind me is Joe Hawley. He's always downfield pushing off tacklers from other teams, and always he's just getting under their skin. Pampo's solid, and Donovan Smith is young. I mean, left tackles do not grow on trees. Would I like him to be better? Yeah. Did I expect him to be a little better this year? Yes, I did. Do I want to give up on him and draft another left tackle? Absolutely not.
Right.
So the offensive line is what it is. I am a little disappointed that we're not running the ball like we did last year, but I don't think it's a weak point on the team.
Right. Yeah, and here's for all of that. And the thing I really want to pick up on, it's the thing that I think people keep coming back to with the offensive line, and I got to admit, it bugs me too. But when I sit back and I think about it, and admittedly, I may be biased because this was the position I played when I played ball, is the more than anyone else, the offensive tackles are the guys that we are. It seems like we're always harping on. Whether it's Donovan Smith, DeMar Dotson, or even Godzler Sherless, when he either comes in as a jumbo tight end and doesn't declare himself eligible, which, my God, how many times has he done that this year? or he's replacing Dotson and he's just out there. And here's the thing. I think Mark Cook puts it this way, and I think it's a fantastic deal. He's over at pewterreport.com, where he says, listen, I don't know that these guys are getting called for more penalties on average than other similar positions throughout the rest of the league. In fact, that's a really hard stat to find. I tried this week to do that. I contacted Greg Allman, and he helped me out as best as he could. Even Mark was trying to look at it, just saying it, and we all just kind of agreed it's a really hard stat to find. But we are more in tune with what's going on with our tackles because they're our tackles. So their penalties are just highlighted to us, and we don't necessarily see what's going on with the other ones. So there's that little thing that's going on as far as fans. But the other thing is, remember, tackles are on the outside of the line, right? Which means they're the closest to the refs, right? Which means, and it also means they've got to hold their blocks a little bit longer, and they're getting out further, and they're moving more, which means they're going to be seen easier by the refs to be called for a penalty. Now, I'm not saying that excuses penalties. All right, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying when you look at what's going on, of course your tackles are going to get called for more penalties than your center or your guards. Right?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah. 100%.
I mean,
I agree. Yeah. And that's a great point about, they don't have both sides of their bodies covered. Like,
right.
There's not a 300-pound guy to the right and the left at them that,
exactly.
That they can hide their hands behind. And plus, they're facing, especially Donovan Smith, he's facing the elite rushers in the NFL. I mean,
right.
There's only 32 guys in the whole entire world that get to line up and try to sack the quarterback from the blind side. And Donovan Smith has to block them, game in and game out.
Right.
And he's never missed a play. Him and Jameis are the only two guys that keeps, haven't missed a play.
There you go.
So he's solid. Once again, do I wish he was a little better? Yeah, I think he can. Honestly, I think it's a little upstairs. I think he has more talent than he really realizes, and I'm not sure and this is total speculation. This is just me. I'm not sure if he works at it hard. Like, Allie comes in, and I'm not trying to compare the two because they're totally different, but Allie comes in, and he still comes in every day and goes to the rookie, well, not every day, but every day they have the meeting, the rookie offensive lineman meeting.
Right.
Allie still does that. He's even said it's boring. He's like, but every once in a while you pick up a little tidbit. Well, Allie's being considered for the Pro Bowl, and fans think Donovan Smith's the worst offensive tackle, or easily the worst offensive lineman we have on the team. So, I'm like, once again, I'm not giving up on him. I think he's gonna be good. I don't think we should draft a left tackle unless it's really, really late for development. But we already have Wester, who apparently they like. They give a big bonus, undrafted free agent bonus, just to get him in camp. So, this is your guy. Love him, Bucs fans.
Yeah.
He's your guy.
And here's the thing. I'm going to pick on this game because I've heard a lot of people, 3 penalties. He had 3 penalties in this game. Donovan Smith had 3 penalties. Okay, let's look at the penalties. The first one where he got called for a false start. And you know what? That's a legitimate. He jumped. He moved. The second one was it's one of the rules you've got to abide by. He did it. It really happened. It's a bullshit rule, though. He breathed. Like go back and look at that. Look at what he did. He just took a deep breath at that particular moment, and it made his lungs expand and his back go up just a little bit. Yes, that is considered a false start, and they do that in every form of the league, and he should know better than that. But I mean, my God, it was such a minute move that he made where he got called on that second false start. That and again, that might be where my bias comes in as a form, because I remember I can remember lining up, putting my hand in the dirt, and I couldn't hear the quarterback as he was calling the snap count, so I turned my ear to him just a little bit, and then I get called for a false start. Because I mean, you have to remain stone still as an offensive lineman when you get up there. And by the way, the defensive guys don't have to remain that still. As far as the last one, he gets called for a face mask. Now you go back and you look at that. The refs messed that one up. That was a completely missed call, because what happened was the guy that he was defending had reached up and grabbed Donovan by the face mask and was talking all kinds of junk. And Donovan was going, "Get the off me." And that's when they looked over and they saw Donovan. And I kind of relate that. I've got a 4-year-old who he comes home with the bad behavior report every day, and I've really come to believe, like, there are times when he's not the one starting it, he's just the one getting caught doing it. And I think that's what happened with Donovan on this one, was he was just the one who got caught. And that's when I want to see Coach Cutter run out and start yelling at the refs, because it was a completely missed call, and had the refs actually seen what had happened, I think the flag would have gone the other way. So, that's this particular game. I am probably going to come to his defense more than any other. But, is he the worst lineman on our line right now, Donovan Smith? I don't think so.
Absolutely not.
I don't think so. I think I just think it's an erroneous storyline that is being helped by some extra penalties, which I think are natural for that position, and we're hyper focused on our team for our guys. So now that said, we'll talk about the other tackle for this game. Gosder Sherrillis came in to replace a concussioned DeMar Dotson. It was good to have him in. He was comfortable, he was confident, he was a veteran. Definitely not as sharp as I think he would have been had he been playing all season, but I mean, it didn't feel like we missed a step with him.
Debatable.
Okay.
Now, I'm glad just like you. I'm glad he's there. He's played 10 years in the league. He started for a lot. He filled in and was big for us last year when Dot went down with the injury. But he didn't have a good game. He got tossed around a lot. Go to Real Bucs Talk, go to the profile, the homepage, and James has about 50 plays all lined up, and you will find 3 or 4 where the play doesn't go anywhere, nothing gets generated, and It's Godser's
Godser's getting thrown around. Okay. Well, admittedly, I've not watched that game breakdown, any of those game breakdowns just yet, but I will before the week is out.
Fair enough.
So now one more thing, and we'll move on to defensive thoughts. And hey, if we want to do another hashtag, we can do this. Marpet for Pro Bowl 2017. All right, let's move on. Defensive thoughts. Any defensive thoughts you have on this game?
Well, we kind of covered them earlier. The first quarter where the Saints only ran 6 plays. I do want to point out how sly the wily old veteran Brent Grimes played that deep ball to Coleman. I mean, I put it out on Twitter, and I think it's clever, so I want to repeat it again. He committed insurance fraud. He cut in front of his lane, slammed on the brakes, and Coleman just ran him over, and they threw the flag. It was a great veteran move. And then after that, I don't think they threw it at Grimes the rest of the game that I can remember off the top of my head. Mm-hmm. But so I just wanted to bring that play up because I thought it was great. What can you say about the defense? When I watched the film, because I mentioned earlier how closing the gap on the checkdowns was a big deal. Mm-hmm. When I watched the film, not including wide receiver screens and running back screens, this is not scientific, but I watched it, and I only got 47 yards after the catch by Saints wide receivers, and that includes deep balls, and that's everything besides wide receivers and quarterback screens. And that offense is built. Yeah, that offense is built 4 yards after the catch. That's what it's for. It's quick passes, quick slants. Get him in the hole, and get that 5-6. You think about it. I mean, most players are around 6 feet tall. Some are taller, some are shorter. Mm-hmm. 6 feet tall, you fall over, it's 2 yards.
Right.
So, if you think every reception that he had, if you fall forward, that's 2 yards. He threw, he had 20, had 20 completions. That's 40 yards. They only had 49 yards the whole game. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was extremely impressive. And 2 big tackles. Levante David came up and stopped the guy closing that yardage gap once again on third down. It was Corey Fleener. The very next play, it brought up third down. They didn't get a first down. The very next play was the first Tandy closing where he tipped it and Grimes got it. Mm-hmm. And then Bradley McDougall, the play that forced the 4th and 1, because they threw it out to their scat back guy. I can't remember his name. And he had the first down. McDougall comes flying up, takes his legs out from under him, and brings up the 4th and 1. And he kept him in bounds, made him call the timeout. And now, so it's under a minute to go, 4th and 1, no timeouts. That was another big stop by McDougall. And, of course, we know what happened on that play.
There you go. Yeah. Well, I think as far as me in defensive thoughts, two things I want to bring out, and I think it's going to sum up the whole thing. One, I have to change something that I said on the Instant Cast show after the game on Sunday. And what I said was that these guys came out and they just didn't seem as pressuring or as smothering as they had been. I mean, they were a good defense, but it didn't seem like it was that forceful kind of defense. Going back and watching this game again, I was completely wrong. This defense was just as pressuring, just as smothering, and just as good as they were against the Chiefs, against the Seahawks, and against the Chargers. And let's even go back to against the Bears. They were all over these guys. Noah Spence had his hands on Breeze all game. I mean, like Breeze's wife needs to get a little bit jealous over how much Noah Spence was feeling up Drew Brees. It was phenomenal to watch how often he was right there, right in his face, had a hand on his arm, had a hand on his back, on his hip, on whatever. And even, some of the plays where Gerald McCoy got credited with something or Robert Ayers got credited with something, it was Noah Spence who was kind of sealing the other side, which allowed those guys to make happen what needs to happen. And, to talk about Robert Ayers, a guy coming up with a huge sack at just the right time when we needed it. Gerald McCoy coming in, man, this defense has just been so good. And I don't know why it didn't feel like that to me while I was watching the game, but it's definitely going back and watching it. So I was completely wrong then. I'm not wrong now. This was a good ass defensive effort by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
It was an outstanding defensive effort. I can't agree with you more. It's it's been so long since Bucs fans have seen a defense like this, but
2002.
Now you understand why like the Kansas City Chiefs has 8 guys on defense go to the Pro Bowl.
Right.
Because you watch our defense, and especially the game after the Saints game, you go, who's not making the Pro Bowl in that defense? Mm-hmm. Like, who didn't have a Pro Bowl game? Like, pick somebody.
Right.
Like, everybody made a play. Everybody stepped up. The defensive line was always motoring. Robert Ayers, you brought up, what a pickup by Jason Light.
Mm-hmm.
The guy's relentless. He's scratching and clawing, and he gets there, and he throws guys aside, and he makes guys miss. He's probably, I like to say he's my favorite new player, but I can't because there's so many.
Yeah.
You got Brent and you got Vernon, and then the coming on of Tandy now, the Tandy man. Like,
yeah,
they're really, really fun.
Who, by the way, just so you know, Tandy is not a new player. He's been around for about 5 years. He just wanted me to make sure I point that out every chance I get.
Thank you, TJ. Yeah, I'm aware of that.
Yeah, I mean, man, how do you? It was. I don't know. Yeah, it was good. I don't know that there's much more that I can add to this conversation talking about the defense because they were just that good.
I'm right there with you. What else can you say?
Yeah. All right. Well, let's go on. Let's do special teams. Anything you got on special teams? Because there was a couple of plays that I think we definitely could talk about.
Yeah, this one's pretty easy. I just want to point out that it was kind of like Brian Anger's worst start, like starting the game. His first punt goes in the end zone, and I was actually mad about that. Like, I've expected such excellence from this guy. When in the end zone, I'm like, what are you doing? Anger, you're the worst. And then, that was just in my head, and I calmed down. I'm like, oh, okay. But I was such shocked that actually went in the end zone, and then his next kick, he kicked it out of bounds on the free kick from the safety.
Yeah.
But besides that, you can throw Huff, taking a short hop to the face and bounce out of bounds.
Yeah.
But
you know what we're calling that? Do you know what the name for that is?
I haven't seen it.
Well, no, because you know what it is when a person who is going to catch the ball, when they drop the ball or they don't get it, it's called a muff, right? So that's called the Huff Muff. Is what
I like it.
It's the Huff Muff. It bounces up and hits him in the face. So he took a muff to the face. I'm just going to leave that out there. This is a PG-13 show. Y'all can do with that what you want. The Huff Muff. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. What else? Everything else was positive. Guile made all his kicks. Anger, pinned him inside the 5 twice. And then, of course, the great play where Josh Robinson goes down there and jumps, and he's in the end of flaring his arms, looking like, he just lost gravity in his spaceship. Right. Ryan Smith lays out, and, here you go, Honcho behind his back. And, it was that's the play everyone's talking about. It's been everywhere.
And how nice of it was Michael Jackson to come back from the dead and choreograph that whole move for us.
I thought that was great. I was really proud. And that's something that people don't understand about Michael Jackson is his football knowledge, because he had to have that picture ready for that play.
Listen, and can you absolutely imagine Michael Jackson coming out with his high-pitched natural talking voice talking to these guys through that? Now listen, guys, here's what we're I can't even do it. I can't do it. Yeah, I mean, gosh, people have been talking about it all week. Who did it better, Michael Jackson or Ryan Smith? And, the memes have started. Somebody put out a PNG where they cut out everything around Ryan Smith, so it's just that thing. I think I saw somebody put up they substituted the bar and the trash compactor scene for the first Star Wars movie with Ryan Smith holding the wall back. So
that's a good one.
Yeah.
I believe it's called The Adventures of Ryan Smith. I believe is what like the thread is, and everybody's like doing their Photoshop their Photoshop pictures and throwing it under there.
Oh, so, I've got Photoshop. Yeah. I should do that. I should do a few of those. Throw those out.
Should.
I like to think I'm funny.
Well, let's try. All right, real quick. Let's try to think one. What would you do? Like, of course, it has to be iconic. What? I think I just put it in I just dragged.
Well, no. Here's you get the leaning Tower of Pisa, and you put Ryan Smith in as the kickstand.
There you go.
How about that?
There you go. 5 seconds. Boom. Got
boom. Yeah. I mean, there's all, as far as special teams go, all of that's true. Aguayo, perfect, awesome. Hashtag I'm with 19. Brian Anger, his worst game of his career as a Buccaneer, and he looked like a normal everyday punter.
Yeah, I know. It was like his worst 2 kicks in a row as a Buccaneer, and then like his best 2 kicks in a row as a Buccaneer.
Yeah, where twice he pins them within the 1 yard line or right in and around there. You get the Huff Muff, which, I mean, okay, listen, the ball hit him in the face. It led to a safety. That was crappy. He should have just backed off the ball, but it's a football. Footballs make funny bounces, and it took a funny bounce and hit him in the face. I mean, he can't let that happen. And then certainly you have the Michael Jackson play where he came back from the dead and choreographed it. I hear it's going to be in the new Thriller video. The Jacksons are coming back. They're going to do a new Thriller video and put that.
I haven't seen that. I'll check my Twitter feed.
Yeah, they're coming along. So, all right, man. Well, we have beat this game to death. So why don't we move on? Let's do final thoughts and grades. What grades do you give to each of these units and the team as a whole? And then any final thoughts, particularly as we look towards the Cowboys this coming week.
Sure. Final grades are going to be a little higher probably than a lot of people would give other ones doing their own. I give offense a B, and that's because they moved the ball and they had the touchdowns were there. They were just like a hair off with a throw here, a throw there. So I have no problems with the way the offensive played. Like I said, it was that funny glitch where they had the ball twice, and once, like I'll say it again, one was a one-play safety in 19 minutes and 51 seconds. 20 minutes. It's a whole full quarter. We only had the ball twice. The defense, I gave them a AA. What can you do? They stopped the Saints twice when they had first downs inside the 5-yard line and had them kick field goal.
Yeah.
3 picks of Drew Brees. It's I don't know if he's ever thrown 3 picks twice in a row, but I know it's been since 2009 since he hasn't thrown back-to-back touchdowns. He had 60 games in a row where he threw at least 1 touchdown. They just shut him down. Like, you can't say enough about what the defense did. And the special teams, I'm giving a B+. I understand, the Huff Muff. I get it, and that's why it's a B+. But once again, Aguayo made all his kicks, and when the pressure is on, it's like Unger. If you put this in the end zone, we might lose. And Ryan Smith went out. I think was it Ryan Smith who got the second one?
Yeah.
Yeah, we circled under it, and
Yeah, he got the smooth criminal save. That was Ryan Smith.
No, the second one where the guy circled under it and missed the catch, but it bounced right back.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if that was Smith or if that was Robinson, but back-to-back kicks, pretty much the whole game was, you can make an argument the whole season's on your legs, son, and he did it again. So yeah, I'm giving. Sorry. My phone went away. I'm giving the special teams a B+, and overall, it's an A. It was. People are going to harp on the offense, and I understand your point, but I'll make that counterpoint till the day that I die. So Bucs win, A.
Yeah, and I'm pretty much right in there with you. I'm going to grade things down just a little bit. Offense to me, I gave a C. They drove the ball, they protected the ball, they just couldn't finish, and that's what matters in the end. But they finished enough to get the points on the board. Defense, I gave them an A. Drew Brees, no touchdowns from him. Lowest score of the year. They did exactly what they needed to do. They finished. Special teams, I'm actually going to give them an A-. Now, I knocked them down just a little bit because of the couple of bad kicks from Anger and the Huff Muff, but we get major points coming back for the smooth criminal save. Major points come back for that one. So, I give them an A-, which to me brings it out to about a B, which, like I said, it's a solid 7. I know you said 7.5. For me, it was a solid 7. It was a good game. It was a good game, not an ugly game at all. It meant any thoughts kind of as we wrap this whole section up, particularly as we look towards the Cowboys?
I'll keep it quick. But, the shines come off Dallas. They're vulnerable.
Yeah.
The same thing that teams are doing to Mike Evans, they started doing to Jason Witten. They have taken away the tight end. Like the old saying, what's a rookie's best friend? The tight end. They have taken Witten out. Some quick stats, like Dallas has only gone converted 2 third downs the past 24. And when Minnesota would show up with that double-A gap blitz look, so basically putting Quan and Levante David on each side of the center, sometimes they both go, sometimes one goes, sometimes they both pull out. That really confused Dak, and I think teams got film on him, and they're not the Dallas Cowboys from 4 or 5 weeks ago, and I really like their chances.
Yeah, as I look towards this coming week, final thoughts on the whole thing is really this. Listen, we know that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers travel well, and we're traveling to prime time. I think this team is more ready for prime time now than they have ever been, at least since 2002. They are primed to go in there and do this. And I think, a lot of people are saying, oh, now the Cowboys are pissed off because they lost. I think the Cowboys are shaken. That's what I think. I've watched a few of their interviews this week. I've watched a little bit of the game. I think they're shaken, and I think that our defense is going to be able to go in there and rattle them a whole lot more, while our offense finds a way to put some points up on the board. And that's where I'm saying this is going to go. I think, certainly the majority of pundits of NFL experts are probably going to give this game to the Cowboys. I think that's way underestimating the Bucs, and I don't make a ton of predictions on this show, but I am going to predict a Tampa Bay win coming this Sunday.
Okay, I'm with you. I don't mind making predictions. I predict when I walk out of this room, I'm gonna go get me some more water. So there's one for me. I think the Bucs take it too. Yeah. But it's one of those games where you can see it going anyway. I mean, everybody knew the Saints-Buccaneers game was going to be 44-39. Everybody knew it.
Right.
And it was 16-11. So I think that we pull it out. I think Jameis has matured in the spotlight. It seems now when in the big games he doesn't it seems like he was doing too much. Now he's kind of found himself. And I look for a really, really good game. I think the Bucs are going to really hampered Dak in the offense. They're going to have trouble scoring on us, and like you said, I think the Bucs score enough points to win the game.
Yep, that's like I said, I don't do predictions, but there's my one. Call it a beer bet if you want for the guys over at Bucs and Brews. I don't care, but that's how I think we're going to wrap this up. Well, fans, now we'd like to know your thoughts on our thoughts. Well, you can do that by shooting us an email to thepewtercast@gmail.com, or you can find us on the Twitter sphere at thepewtercast, or on Facebook at facebook.com/thepewtercast. We do respond to all forms of feedback, and it's one of the more fun aspects of being in this whole Buck community, this Pewtercast community that we've been building here. Well, guys, up next is our top 3 segment, so make sure you stick around. We'll be right back.
Swing and jingle bells ring, snowing and blowing the bushels of fun. Now the jingle hop has begun. Jingle bell, jingle bell, jingle bell rock. Jingle bells chiming, jingle bell time. Dancing and prancing in Jingle Bell Square in the frosty air. What a bright time, it's the right time to rock the night away. Jingle bell time is a swell time to go gliding in a one-horse sleigh. Giddy up, jingle horse, pick up your feet. Jingle around the clock. Mixed and mingled in the jingling feet. That's the Jingle Bell Rock.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible.com. Right now for you, Pewtercast fans, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. And an Audible subscription makes the perfect Christmas gift for that loved one who loves to read but is always on the go. This month I'm recommending the book The Martian by Andy Weir. This is the novel that the Matt Damon movie is based on, and if you liked the movie like I did, then I know you're going to love this book. It's the story of an astronaut who is mistakenly left behind on the planet Mars and has to figure out how to survive until the next rescue mission can come get him in 4 years. And this is a rare time when I will tell you that due to the nature of how it's written, it's actually better to listen to the audiobook than it is to actually read the paper version of the book. To download your free audiobook, go to audibletrial.com/thepewtercast. Again, that's audibletrial.com/thepewtercast for your free audiobook.
Shotgun formation, 4th down 1. Here's the snap, dropping Breeze, the pass go. It's all the way, it's picked off, intercepted at the 48-yard line. Intercepted by the Buccaneers. Keith Tandy, the Tandy man can, and he just did again for the second game in a row. Bucs will beat the Saints today.
Welcome back to the Pewtercast. You're listening to episode number 24, and for today's top 3, since for the second week in a row, Keith, the Tandy man Tandy, has made a game-sealing interception. And really, since the Bucs have had to go to the bench on more than a few occasions, we thought we'd take a look at some of our favorite players to come off of the bench. So, Ren, I'm going to toss it to you first, man. What criteria did you have for your list, and what is your number 3 pick?
My criteria was kind of all over the place, to be honest. The only one I stuck to was that they came off the bench. And more love for the special teams. I started with Brian Unger. And the reason I say come off the bench is because punters don't get to practice since, after pregame. They can kick the ball into the net, but he doesn't know, like, if he puts this much power on it, he thinks it's going to go 30 yards. But he doesn't get to practice that. He has no idea. So he's sitting there for who knows how long. And then he has to come out and he has to pin the ball in, inside the 5-yard line. And that's the epitome of coming off the bench. Every week he does it. He comes in, he's clutch, he nails it, and he does his job. He should be in Orlando.
Well, fantastic. I would not have thought about it that way, but yeah, man, that totally works. And hey, Brian Unger, you can put him on any top 3 list, and I'm not going to disagree with that. For my criteria this week, I tend to open up my criteria to any former player. I don't just limit it to this season, but for this particular week, I did want to limit it to players this season, which is going to, for me, eliminate people like Cameron Brate and Adam Humphries, because while they certainly would have qualified for this list last year, they really came in as the starters or the presumptive starters this year. So they were out for me. And I really wanted to just keep it fresh and relevant. So maybe one day we'll come back and do a list where we can look at favorite off the bench players, throughout the history of the Bucs. But I'm sticking with players from this year. Also, I wanted to focus on people that had a huge impact in the game, which they came off the bench for, or the games. And then I took off people that were signed by the team and then just played straight away. So for me, a guy like Brian Unger, who was signed by the team, and yeah, he had that little competition with Jacob Shum back in the preseason, but he really came in to start. And also people like Cecil Shorts. He came in and he came in to play. So I kind of pulled those guys off the team to really just say, and here's what I said: if they were not starters, but they were on the active roster for 2 or 3 weeks, or they were practice squad guys for a couple weeks before coming off the bench, then I maybe let them slide in there. And the other thing too is I took off Keith Tandy from my list, just for me, because he was the one who inspired this whole thing. It just seemed a little too easy. So sorry, Keith. He's already an honorable mention though, just because he's the one who inspired this list. So with that said, my number 3 pick is going to be our backup to the backup for our center, which has been Gottschalk. Now, he was the one who honestly I think made me the most nervous on this list, but he held it together. Joe Hawley went down, Evan Smith steps in. They call up Gottschalk from the practice squad to back up Evan Smith, and wouldn't you know it, Evan Smith goes down, and now this third-string practice squad guy that honestly I didn't love during the preseason and thought he really should have been one of the early cuts, played well enough to service the game. Now I still prefer Hawley and Smith, But that's for their tenacity, their experience calling plays on the line. But I'm really interested to see how Ben Gottschalk progresses in the coming years to be, if he's going to turn into a quality center for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, that's a great pick. And what some people may not realize is the center for the Buccaneers, not all teams do this, but the center for Buccaneers make all the line calls. He has to call out the blocking schemes.
Yeah.
And for a rookie to come in, first game, first action, and it's in the game, like he wasn't even prepared for it. Like he had to like get up and go. And I'm sure he prepared through the week, but he's sitting on the bench. Now you have to go into a big game and you have to make all the line calls. That's a lot of pressure. And you're right. Like we didn't miss a beat. Like you watched him for a few plays to see how he did, and you just kind of forgot all about him.
Yeah.
That's a really good pick.
Thanks, man.
Go ahead.
Number 2. Go ahead.
Number 2. I picked a guy who's gotten a lot of publicity lately. I think, and I'm not sure if I'm right on this, but something like 16 months ago, he's never played like football in his whole entire life. Practice squad guy, Judah Jabrima gets suspended. Alteron Werner has to stay out in California, and Javian Elliott from Florida State. He's good coming pick. Up. He played nickel slot. I think he played like 40 plays against the Saints, and he made some big tackles. Like he stuck his nose in there. There was a wide receiver screen, and he beat both blockers and tripped up the wide receiver for a short gain. And he came up on Coleman, that kid from Rutgers, the Saints wide receiver. That guy's a beast. And JV was like 178 pounds, like 175 pounds. And he went up there and he brought him down, And it was one of those yak things I was talking about. It was like the only yards you got is when he fell forward, and it wasn't even 2 yards. It was just a yard. So, yeah. So coming off the bench, Javian Elliott for me.
Yeah, good pick. He's a guy that I was aware of. He was in the game, and I kept forgetting about him. And then I'd see his number, or I'd see his name, and I go, "Oh yeah, that guy." And he's a guy that I have kind of in the back of my head as a guy that I want to, I want to go back and look at film for him specifically and just kind of watch him. Just because I'm interested. I've not really seen a ton of what he's done before now. And I'm real interested just to see how he did coming off the deal. But, he certainly made his impact on the game, made his presence felt, cause he kept coming, popping up on the radar. Well, my number 2 is actually a guy you just mentioned, in your talk there, but not Javian Elliott. And this one honestly is probably a little more subjective because I tend to have a soft spot for the guys that have been around for a while. But this is a guy who's been a starter, actually went back and became he got benched, so to speak. Benched now, I think, at least for the second time. And I'm talking about Alteron Werner. Here's the thing. Again, this may just be the big old softy, which ever since I became a father, man, I'm squishy now. On the inside as well as the outside. And, his story is just, it's so heartbreaking. It's so endearing. He meets all of the criteria for this list. And especially with that interception that he had against the Chargers coming off, that game right off the death of his father, to see him come out and play the way he did and how the team rallied around him. And he certainly is a guy who came off the bench because he was on the bench. I just that to me, we talk about our favorite off the bench players, and that's been one for me this year, Alteron Werner.
Yeah, I love the pick. He got a lot of flack, for the past couple of years. He was a former Pro Bowler, had a big contract, then he couldn't get on the field. And then, but when he did, he came up big, and like you said, it was such a great moment. Like even the national media picked up on it when he made the interception, and then he was tackled, and he was laid on the field, and the whole team picked him up, and everyone came out to say hi, and then they showed him, he's sitting on the bench, and the camera's like right in his face, and he's crying, like right. He is crying, like. Tears are rolling down his face, but he's doing, like the trying to catch his breath, like deep sob crying, and it's like, oh my god. Right. But yeah, that was I'm with you on that one. That was a great pick. For my number 1, it's it's pretty simple on this criteria. I went with, who's number one? Who's the best person coming off the bench? And it was his first game back in a while, and that's Charles Sims. I mean, when Charles Sims comes in, it totally changed the dynamic of the offense. Once again, you get him on the edge, you get him in space, and he can turn that 5-yard pass or that 2-yard flare, and, he can take it to the house. So it's not really that complicated for me. My best player, first player, one I like the most, Charles Sims.
Yeah, man, we talked about that a little bit in the last segment, saying welcome back, Charles Sims, because this is a guy who certainly makes an impact on the game. And again, I always like to preface that with when he's playing his position. And Charles Sims he's just such a reliable, good player. Like we talk about him being part of the best 1-2 punch running backs in all of football. And while we may not have seen that, they've both had severe interceptions that have kept them out for multiple weeks. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure or was it you that told me that we've only had Doug Martin and Charles Sims together in the same game for the whole game? At the Atlanta
Brett,
game and this one. I think it was you that was telling me that earlier tonight.
So, about a half hour ago.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a fount of source of information. Pull it in from everywhere. But yeah, man, Charles Sims, that's a great pick. For my number one, actually, it's not Charles Sims, but I am going to be sticking with the same position group that he's in. And, I'm talking about a guy, Doug Martin, he goes out, he gets hurt. Charles Sims kind of comes in, we bring up, we have some other guys. We're going, all right, who's going to be the next running back? And then all of a sudden, Charles Sims goes down and we're like, holy crap, what are we going to do now? And out of nowhere, this guy who's smaller than Doug Martin, who hits the hole seemingly just as hard as Doug Martin, comes into play. And I'm, of course, talking about Jacquizz Rodgers. When he comes off the bench, we were lost. We were wondering. We didn't know what we would do. But he was a guy who certainly turned a lot of heads. He got picked up in fantasy. I told people, pick this guy up in fantasy because he's going to do some stuff. And for several weeks in a row, he put up some great numbers for me in fantasy this year. And I dare say I might not be in the playoffs in fantasy football this year had it not been for Jacquizz Rodgers. So he makes my number one favorite player to come off the bench. Let's sign this guy up for another year here with Tampa Bay.
Yeah. Who else are you going to get? I mean,
yeah.
Name me a third string back on any team that's more important to their team than Jacquizz Rodgers is important to us. He is the perfect mixture of both of them.
Yeah.
He can run inside with power like Doug does, but Doug does it better. But he can also get on the edge and catch a pass and take it downfield. But Chuck Sims does it better.
Right.
So you put those two guys together and to have someone with that experience, and not only was the reason that Dirk Cutter brought him in was because he's familiar with the system, it's because he can pass block. He can pick up the blitz. He's a veteran. He knows what he's doing. I don't think he's going to make it next year, and that's just simply because if you follow the way Jason Light does things, he takes a rookie with upside over a veteran that's peaked and on the way down. He almost every single time. I'm not going to say every single time but I just can't think of one that he does. Mm-hmm. But that's the way he leans. So, but I would not be shedding a tear at all. I'd actually be happy about it and probably brag with a couple people like, we got the best third. You got the best third RB3 in the league. Yeah, what do you guys have?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a good pick. I like it.
And for that, I'd argue that I think we probably have. I don't know if he's the best because I don't know what they all are out there. But I'd say we definitely have one of the best RB4s in the league as well in Peyton Barber, who was a guy who just made my honorable mentions list. So why don't we go ahead and jump over there? Do you got any honorable mentions for your list today? People who maybe just didn't quite make the list.
You could have made it for anybody that's played the slot this year. Jude earlier in the year, he stepped up and like you said, Altron Werner. Any of the defensive linemen when we got hit by those injuries, any of those guys that came in, they re-signed Hughes back today. John Hughes. The guy that had his first sack last week. Not against the there you go. Yeah, Russell. I mean, you can pick anybody, and it has and I saw this today on Bucs Live. The reason they're not starting is because, it's next man up. So the guy's supposed to come up and go in and play just as well. You're not supposed to have a drop off. Well, that doesn't happen. Let's face it, because if it was, he'd be starting. But for the amount of people that we had to plug in, and for the amount of times they have come up big in games, it's been very impressive about the way they're coaching them up, and it's been impressive how Jason Light has found these guys to fit the system, and they're playing their guts out, and the Bucs are being rewarded for it.
Yeah, they certainly are. I think some of my honorable mentions are, like I said, this is Keith Tandy. I can't do this list without mentioning him. Another one for me, going back to the offensive line, Caleb Beninock, a guy who came off the bench, substituted in for some injuries and other things with Kevin Pamphil, who I think at the time was out with the concussion protocol, if I remember right.
Correct.
And then another one that I got to throw in there for me is going to be Noah Spence. He didn't fully meet all of the criteria that I had for this particular list, but I really thought of him because, when we brought him in, we thought he was just going to be a pass rusher, and he would be in certain packages. But he, Cutter was talking about him this last week of just saying he's proven to be much more of an every down kind of guy, and he's playing better, especially since he got this shoulder harness on, which go figure. Very weird, but so he's a guy that I think kind of came off the bench like 50% of the way, to play on plays we didn't think he'd be playing on, and he's just been playing lights out. So yeah, those are a couple more of my honorable mentions. Well, Pewtercast fans, now I'd like to know how your picks stack up against ours. You can let us know on Twitter or Facebook or email. It's all at the Pewtercast, at Pewtercast, facebook.com/thepewtercast, thepewtercast@gmail.com. Shoot us a note. Let us know, how do your picks stack up against ours? What have been some of your favorite off the bench players? And Ren, I tell you what, before we get out of here, why don't we take a look at this week's poll?
It's real bad. Okay? I don't like those numbers at all.
Just one poll? Those things aren't scientific.
Yes, they are. All this is science. This is math.
All right, and this week we thought we'd ask, just kind of given some of the narratives that are going on out there, which players' inconsistencies have you the most concerned? And I tried to pick out some of the players that seem to be catching a lot of the most flack this year for being rather inconsistent. And so for that, we have Roberto Aguayo, Doug Martin, Levante David, and then, of course, as always, we leave the write-in option. Ren, what were you thinking about this? Where do you go as far as player inconsistencies having you worried?
Well, it depends on what you mean by having me worried. I mean, I actually took part of this poll before, we got together tonight, and I wrote in Donovan Smith. But that's more of a long-term worry because his play is inconsistent, and, he's up and down, and you really think that a player in his second year would take a jump, but he really hasn't gotten there yet, but he's not a bust by any stretch of the imagination. But if you want to look at it as in for like this year, like for this stretch run, and if we make the playoffs, then you got to be Aguayo. You just have to be. It's that's what it is.
Yeah, I can certainly understand that. We had a lot of responses actually to this particular poll. This is probably our most interactive poll that we had out there, which I thought was really great. Our buddy Chef Aaron tweeted back. He said both A and B, Aguayo and Martin. Jesse Moorfield points this out, and I'll go ahead and spoil this. 0 votes for Levante David. Apparently nobody is worried about him, which honestly as it should be. He's been really coming on strong over the last 5 weeks. A couple different people saying I like it when people tweet back somebody that was actually on the list, and several people tweeted back. Yeah, several people tweeted back Roberto Aguayo. There's a couple people saying Donovan Smith as well.
Joe Hawley was on there, wasn't he?
Joe Hawley, yeah. Joe Hawley was on there. Actually, I think that was whoever runs the Real Bucs Talk, your website there, that Twitter account. Yeah. Roberto. And here's the thing: I would personally put in, if I had to pick of those, I'd say it'd be Roberto. Mostly because he's a guy that I find when he walks on the field, I still hold my breath. I go, is it, but to be fair to the question, which players' inconsistencies worry you the most? I'm not worried about Roberto. Yeah. I mean, it's why hashtag I'm with 19 exists. he's going to put it together. And if he doesn't put it together, we're going to kick him out and we'll get somebody else in. I'm not worried about him. You know?
Okay, what I thought you were saying was that I'm not worried about Aguayo because I'm not worried he's going to be inconsistent. I know he's going to be inconsistent.
Well, there you go.
I'm like, that's one way to look at it. Yeah, you wiggle, hashtag I'm with 19 in there on that.
There you go.
But I feel you. You know what? The young man makes it fun to watch an extra point. I'll tell you that. He
makes it something to watch an extra point. But I got to tell you, with that, 75% of our respondents all agreed that it is Roberto Aguayo. 18% said Doug Martin. Absolutely zero said Levante David. And 7% said that they would write in their own option, which that number, like I said, is a bit skewed because some people came back with Roberto Aguayo or Doug Martin on both of that. So to everyone who took part of that poll, thank you so much. It's always a fun part to be able to interact with you guys on that. Well, guys, that's going to do it for this segment. Stay with us. We're coming back with What Are the Chances? We'll be right back. Hey, Pewtercast fans, I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you for how you have been supporting this show. Whether you've simply subscribed to us on your favorite podcasting platform, or you've taken the time to communicate with us through social media, or have even gone the extra step to rate and leave us a review. Maybe you've left a monetary donation at paypal.me/thepewtercast, or you've taken advantage of your free audiobook at audibletrial.com/thepewtercast. I appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. You have made this first year of the podcast truly more than I could have ever imagined. And if you or someone you know has a business that you would like to become an official sponsor of the show, please email me at thepewtercast@gmail.com and put sponsorship in the subject line. I would love the opportunity to discuss these options with you to help keep the Pewtercast going. So however you support the show, thank you. This would not be possible without you. And we're back. This is episode number 24 of the Pewtercast, Defrocking the Saints. And for today's discussion segment, we're bringing back really a new favorite of mine called What Are the Chances? And how this segment works, Ren and I both have a couple of scenarios that we're going to be asking each other. What are the chances this could happen? So, Ren, I'm going to toss it to you first, man. What do you got?
Okay. What are the chances that Jude Ajay-Barima, who's coming back after his 4-game suspension, and Chris Conte, who possibly could be back from his chest contusion, because Dirk Cutter said that he'll be back sooner than later, and that was last week, get their starting jobs back?
I think the chances are probably 99% for Jude. Hey, Jude Ajay-Barima, that he'll be coming back right back into where he went. And for Chris Conte, here's the thing. I've scratched my head at Chris Conte for 2 years now of going, why is this guy the starter for our team? Now, granted, I want to give credit where credit's due. There are times when this guy comes up big. There are times when he comes up huge, and you go, oh, that's why he is starting in for this team. But the only thing that I can come back to is when he's on the practice field and he's showing coaches what he's got, that he is outplaying every other safety that's out there that we have on the team. That's the only thing that I can come back to. And so a lot of it, I think, just depends on how is he practicing. Because, Keith Tandy's come up huge in these last couple of games. Now, as much as we love Keith Tandy, he's been around the league for 25 years. And he's just not going away. Is he doing enough outside of those 2 game-sealing interceptions to maintain that starting job if Conte's coming back and practicing so much better? I don't know. So I tend to think that coaches, they don't like people losing their starting job due to injuries. So I tend to think that's probably about an 80% chance if I had to guess.
Yeah. Yes and no on those. Jude, yeah, it was fun to throw in there, but yeah, he's probably, he's obviously our third. I think he's our third best corner, so stick him in slot. He's going to get his job back. JV, nice story. I like him. I hope he sticks on the team. I'd love to have him there if Jude ever goes down again. Mm-hmm. But the Chris Conte thing, I mean, you're like, well, has Tandy done enough except two game-ending interceptions? Okay, well, how is that not enough to keep your starting job? I understand what you're saying. I mean, the Bucs coaches seem to like you have to be – what Conte does, he's always in the right place at the right time. And we hate him at the beginning. But you got to remember he made 2 touchdown-saving tackles in that first Atlanta game, really pulled it out for us. And then the past 2 weeks with the touchdown – in Kansas City, and then the early pick 6 off Cutler in Chicago game. Mm-hmm. He really kind of got this defensive domination rolling for the Buccaneers. Mm-hmm. But to be able to put a percentage on it, because Tandy's been also tackling well, playing solid, and you know what? I'm gonna cop out, and I'm gonna go 50-50.
Yeah. Hey, here's what I can guarantee you. 100% chance Bradley McDougald keeps his starting safety job. It's really going to be down between those two. So, yeah, the only thing that leads me up so far on the 80% is just the idea that because Conte has so consistently won that job over the last 2 years over Tandy, that's why I think he's probably going to get it back, because whatever he did to win it, he'll come back in and do it to win again. Now, I'm not saying that's what I think should happen. In fact, I'm not. I don't even know that I know what I think should happen. But yeah, that's just my thought on that. So, all right, Ren, I got one for you.
What are the chances
that we continue to keep 4 running backs on our active roster?
Good. I was looking into this. I'm glad you picked that one up. That was the big thing about when they brought up Sims and they didn't let go of Barber.
Yeah.
Release him. That was my thing. I'm like, okay, so what that says to me is the Bucs, well, 1, like Barber. 2, they don't think he's going to make it through waivers.
Right.
Because he'll just go through waivers or sign back in the practice squad. Everyone's happy. But they've never kept 4 running backs on their team like this year at all. Mm-hmm. They've always, granted they've been like scratching and crawling to get 3, but now did you say active roster or the 53-man?
Yeah, on the active roster.
I don't.
Now someone might be inactive for a game, but they're going to stay on the 53. What are the chances we keep all 4 on the active roster?
On the active roster, I think it's going to be a need thing. There's a lot of players that are coming back this week that you got to make room for. So obviously, if Dot gets good, then Charles is out. If Humphrey comes back, you'll send Dye back down. But there's going to come a time where they're going to need a spot, and I don't think they're active for 4 weeks or even in the playoffs, but I definitely think they like him enough where they want to keep him. Just like we discussed earlier, like Jacquizz Rodgers, or Jacquizz, I should say. Rodgers, he's a good player. We like him, but he's not 21, 22, 23 years old, and Barber is, and they like Barber just as much. Barber's blitz pickup from the preseason to now he's greatly improved. So I think he's doing a good job. Okay, percentage that they're going to keep on the active roster. I'm going to go with 95%. And the only reason I leave the 5% open is if somebody goes down somewhere and they need just the bodies, and it's just like, sorry, man, like we need the bodies and we don't need 4 running backs. We hope we don't lose you, but it's just a numbers game, and you got to hit the waiver wire.
Yeah, honestly, I'm at the exact same number that you are, is at 95%. And what I said there is that all 4 have proven their worth. They all have, like individually at various times they have shown And correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't there one game where Peyton Barber came out and he was like the big running back for the game?
He was the guy.
So all four of these guys have been the feature back at some point in the season. Peyton Barber's got to be a guy who is in consideration for most improved over the year on the team. And probably just because of the injury situation, he's gotten more reps and more game time than he would have for any other situation. And they've all shown how good they can be. And exactly what you said is, I don't see any of them making it through the waiver wire unclaimed. And God, Jason Light's got to be looking at that too. So, and honestly, even if they were to make it through the waiver wire and we re-sign them to the practice squad, it doesn't stop another team from swooping in to take them away. I mean, that's how we got Cam Brate. He was off the Saints practice squad last year. It's how we lost Danny Vitale this year, one of our draft picks.
Good point.
And I don't see Jason Light and company kind of taking the chance on any of these four guys that we love so much. I think if anything, more than cutting one of them, we might see one traded, possibly. Well, no, we're past the trade deadline. Never mind. So maybe when we get to the offseason, we keep them through and then we trade them in the offseason. I don't know. But, I don't know. As you say, I think it could just be if it comes down to a numbers thing and we need their spot for someone else. But other than that, I think we keep all four of them, even though that's against the grain of what we would normally do. I think we keep all four of them at least through the end of the regular season and quite possibly through the end of whatever we may or may not have after the regular season.
Yeah, and just to finish up on that, for some reason I automatically thought that, and that wasn't the question. I automatically thought, Barber's the out guy. It could, if it comes down to a numbers game, it could very well be Quiz because of his age, and he doesn't have to go through. Once he's released, he automatically becomes a free agent because he's had 2+ years in the league. So he doesn't go through the waiver wire. He becomes a free agent. I still keep it at 95, but I shouldn't have just automatically thought that Barber was the one that, if they're going to cut somebody, it's going to be Barber. Because I don't know. I really don't.
Yeah, that's a good point. Good point. All right, man. Well, your turn. You got one more for us?
Yeah. All right. All right. Here we go.
What are the chances?
Mike Smith leaving after this year.
Oh, yeah. We've been talking about this for 2 weeks. Nikki and I talked about it. Bucs Princess and I talked about it quite a bit on last week's show. We talked about it at the Instant Cast show this last week, and I'm happy to be talking about it this week again. I think the chances are getting bigger and better every single week. I don't want to say better because I hate that word because I don't want Mike Smith to go. But I think the chances are getting higher that he goes because I think the 49ers might be looking for a new coach come the end of this year. I think the Bengals might be looking for a new coach come the end of this year. I think the Bills might be. There's lots of teams I think that could be looking for a new coach at the end of this year. We already know the Rams are going to be looking for a new coach, and Mike Smith has to be one that's in the list. The only thing I think that might save us, I don't want to say the only thing, a couple of things, is that Mike Smith is really comfortable where he is and actually enjoys being a D coordinator and not wanting to be like, it's just his own personal thing. Like, I'm good right here. I've been a head coach before and I don't want to do that again. I'm here. I'm with, a good buddy of mine in Dirk Cutter. And I love what we have going on here. I'm committed to this team and what we have going on here. And the fastest way to the Super Bowl is for me to stay right here. So I'm just going to stay right here. Plus, Jason Light just offered me a big old sack of money to stay. So, I think those are things that could keep him. I know if I was in his position, those would be things, I could be bought. There could be things that would keep me from moving on to a head coaching position. And those would be the things that I think could be it. And Mike Smith seems like a smart enough guy that could be it. But also, the thing is I have zero gauge on whether or not Mike Smith wants to be a head coach again. I think he got ran out of town from Atlanta really unjustly. I don't think he was ready to stop head coaching at that point, or at least he might not have been. I don't know. But he's in a really good situation right now. So, and if I'm a GM for another team that's looking for a head coach, I'm banging down Mike Smith's door I really am. So I think he's going to have his pick this year. And if I had to put a percentage on it, I'm probably going to go. I think it's probably a 85% chance he probably goes, which I hate to say that. I hate to say that. That kills me. That a little bit of me dies inside saying that, just so you know.
And I can't make an argument where that's ridiculous and call you why do you have a podcast? You're ridiculous. Bucs fan. I can't. I'd love to, but I can't. Yeah, it's all about what Mike Smith wants to do. Yeah. Mike Smith can stay here, like you said, with his friend. They've had success everywhere they've been. They've had great success wherever they've been. They had San Francisco down like 35-7 at halftime on the game to go to the Super Bowl. In Jacksonville, the only time Jacksonville had any success, any glimmer of hope, was when those two were together in Jacksonville. They're doing the same thing here. So that's it. Like, do I, as Mike Smith, want to go and do all there is to do, all the pressure, all the extra hours, watch every, I don't have to be everyone's babysitter, but, have wearing a lot of hats, or do I like hanging out in the press box on Sundays and, people tell me about what a smart defensive coordinator I am?
And Mike Smith himself in his press conferences says he's having the time of his life, not having to worry about all the head coaching stuff, just doing what he's doing. He himself has been saying that.
And I've never heard him say, like, as soon as he got the job, like, the narrative right away was, he got this job so he could become a head coach. Like, but I've never heard him say that. I've heard every outlet say it. I've read it at, on everywhere that has an article about Mike Smith, especially when he first got here. But I've never heard him say it. And I've heard him interviewed. I know you don't talk about it during the regular season, but he was interviewed a lot of times beforehand. So like I said, I just know where his head at. Where am I going to put a percentage on it? Should I cop out? I'm going to go 50-50? No, I won't. Percentage, Mike Smith. How do I say it? Stay or goes? You did it as 85 goes. So I'm going to do it that way. I'm going to go. I'm going to say 63 goes.
Yeah.
63% goes.
In some school districts, that's a failing grade, just so you know.
Good.
And you know what? Honestly, I like your number a lot better than I do mine. Here's the thing. I know if it was me, honestly, if it was me, and it's the type of person that I am, I think I want the head coaching job. I think I do. Now,
even if you've had it,
and you've been
out
there,
of town, and all you did was win.
Yeah,
they ran you out of town, and they called you names. They called you all Q-tip guy, and the games passed you by, and you don't know what you're talking about.
Listen, what you're describing there is every experience. It's every experience of every leader in any organization, no matter what they're doing. That comes with the territory of being a leader, is what you're describing there, and you know that, you accept that as a leader. You ignore a lot of it because you know that a lot of that is said by people who don't actually know what's going on, and you move on. But you do your best to make things happen, and you do your best to. Here comes the C word. Yay, I get to say it again. You do your best to create a culture, and to define what's going on where you are, and to take your organization from here to there. You're here. This is not an okay place to stay. That's where we want to go. And your job is to get them there. And if that's innate in you, if that's born in you, you have to go do that. Jameis Winston comes in and he's this natural, innate, born leader, but you also listen to him. I remember that interview he had with Terry Bradshaw 2 weeks ago, where he turned around and he said, "You tell me, let me learn from you." He's also learning. Yeah, it's innate, but he's also doing what it takes to learn from other people who've been there before. And that's the mark of a really great leader. But that's just what you do as a leader. And so, to the thing that you had said, to the thing that I had said, I just don't know what Mike Smith's disposition is. I know if it was me, my disposition, I'm going to probably want to be in a head coaching job. Now, I'm also not as old as Mike Smith. As men, we go through different phases of life, right? And there comes a point when you hit a certain age where you go, you know what? I'm okay kind of being the guy who's got a little bit more wisdom. Let me let somebody else lead the ship and let me be the guy who's kind of this wise old sage who's able to go in and be the Merlin to their King Arthur. We hit that spot as men as we grow older. So, I don't know. I don't know if Mike Smith's there or not. But for me, where I am sitting at 36 years old, I want to lead. I want to run the ship.
No, I'm right there with you. I really like what you said about that's what you expect when you take on that role. That's a responsibility that you do.
Yep.
And I agree with you 100%. Kind of sounds like you're interviewing for the job a little bit yourself, and you have my vote.
Well, hey, I promise you guys this: if I get a head coaching job at some NFL team, I will still do the Pewtercast. I'll come back for season 2. And I'll still do the Pewtercast right here. All right, guys. Well, I think that's going to wrap up our segment as well as this episode. Just as a final reminder for everybody out there, you can get in touch with us about anything that we've talked about today. Facebook.com/thepewtercast, at Twitter @thepewtercast, or if you're a little more winded than just 140 characters, you can email me at thepewtercast@gmail.com. Ren Daxt, I'd like to thank you so much for being the guest this week, being here with us tonight. Man, I hope you had a great time here. Why don't you remind everybody where they can find a little bit more of you and your work out there on the internet?
Sure. First, let me thank you for having me on. It really was a treat. I enjoyed myself. And this is something you might run into. It's so hard to find people where you can sit down and have an hour conversation about football with, because we are in it so deep. Mm-hmm. We know everything. So you run into your friend on the street or the guy at work, and it's like, so do you think the Bucs are going to keep 4 running backs for the rest of the season? And it's like, what? I thought there was only 1 running back, right? So
right.
You have that conversation. It's really nice for me to be able to, bounce back and forth with you on that. You can find us on the easiest way to do it. Find us on Twitter at Real Bucs Talk, BUCS. And then if you want to follow me personally, I'm a contributor. We always retweet the stuff, and you can also find my Twitter handle on the articles that I write, but it's at Ren Daxt, REN_DAXT. We're always putting out new content. Like I said earlier, 500 posts in less than a year. We still got a month to go. We might hit 550, probably 600. Give us a follow like Brent does. We follow you back. We always, you got any questions, you leave comments on the articles. We always answer them. We're just 3 guys that love the Bucs. We think we're smart about football. We have something to say, and we want you guys to enjoy it. So, yeah, realbucstalk.com.
Yeah, well, you guys make sure you go check out their stuff, particularly as we referenced before, the game film that they review. Putting it out on Vine, it's just 6 seconds at a time, which really helps you to be able to digest it pretty well. But yeah, they do fantastic work over there. So make sure you guys go over there, follow that at Real Bucs Talk, at Ren_Dax. And one more way that I know you can actually find Ren is on Sunday nights. If you go to mixler.com/thepewtercast about 10 o'clock, Ren's usually in the chat room there. He'll talk with you. And he's usually also at the What the Buck recording on Thursday nights when they have that. So you can check in with him there. You can chat with him, and you can do that. Ren, thank you so much once again for being a guest on the show. Hey, this is a couple really good weeks. We've had the Bucs have been winning. We've had some really great guests on the show. Really this whole year, but particularly these last couple weeks. With that, guys, I mentioned earlier in the show, I love watching Christmas movies this time of year. In fact, just as a personal thing, I try to make it a point to watch one a day through this whole season. The other day, I was watching the great old Christmas classic, Home Alone. And that scene at the end where Kevin is talking to the scary old trash can guy, and he's just kind of encouraging him to take the risk and call his family to sort of mend the fences. And, that jumped out at me as I was watching at this particular time. And it reminded me of a song by my favorite band, Need to Breathe, called More Heart, Less Attack. And in it, there's this line that says, be the light in the cracks. Be the one that's mending the camel's back. Leave the past right where it's at. Be more heart and less attack. And since it's this time of year, guys, I really want to encourage you. Be more heart. Be ever growing. Be steadfast. And if you need to be the one who's standing in the gap. And you'll find out that you're the one who has twice the heart that anyone else could ever have. Unless you're the Grinch, whose heart grew 3 sizes that day. Yeah, that's the movie I watched today. All right, guys, well, until next time, it's time to rope in them Cowboys. Go Bucs.